Welcome to RCC Talk. I'm Kim Pryor, Public Information Director at Rockingham Community College. We're happy that you've joined us, and we've got some very interesting guests at the table today. First off, my co-host, Sally Newman. She is Director of Customized Training at the college. I have Dawn Moser. She is our Faculty for Medical Office Administration. And I have Vickie Chitwood, who is our Department Chair for Allied Health and is Assistant Professor of Respiratory Therapy. So welcome, ladies.
Welcome,
Sally.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you for coming back, Sally.
It's a pleasure, as always.
Let's get started with some basics. Vickie, tell me how you came to RCC. Tell me a little bit about your career journey and your education.
I actually graduated high school at 17, went to work at a local hospital in Martinsville, Virginia. Worked all over the hospital, got to see all kinds of disciplines from cashier to insurance to just lots of different stuff. Ended up in the emergency room as a secretary, where I got to see a lot of hands-on disciplines. I got to see phlebotomists, nurses, a lot of different disciplines do a lot of different things. And I saw the respiratory therapist and what they did. And I thought, I want to do that. That's direct patient contact. I really like that. So at the young age of 30, I went back to school and actually went to work in the respiratory therapy department at the hospital at that time, and went to school and worked in the department and it's been a respiratory therapist ever since. I applied for a position here when the respiratory therapy program opened 16 years ago. Did not meet the educational requirements at the time, so I went back to school at the ripe old age of 36 and got 2 bachelor's degrees and a master's degree. So respiratory has led me to lots of educational opportunities and patient opportunities, and just, I love it. I love it.
Well, the college is lucky to have someone with that kind of passion in your field. Dawn, now your area is a little different. Vickie mentioned that her work is very hands-on, and you are training men and women in the profession of medical office to work in the hands-off area.
That's correct.
Tell me a little bit about how you came to RCC, your career, your education. Tell us about that.
So I started out with my associate's degree, actually in a general diploma, and I went to tour a medical records department as part of the class. And when I walked into the department, I knew exactly that's what I wanted to do.
Wow.
And so I asked, what do I need to do to pursue a career in medical records? And I actually had to travel about an hour to get to the school that offered the program at that time. And it started there, and I started out in medical records with an associate's degree, and I passed my national exam, and I started out as a coder and worked my way up, and was then the director of medical records for about 12 years. And then I tried a different journey to work with physicians, and was the director of physician practices, and had about 8 medical offices with 14 providers and multi-specialty clinics. And so I've had the opportunity to work with both inpatient and outpatient services. And I really enjoy working with the medical staff and also customer service, where we do affect the entire patient experience from beginning to end. And even after the patients have gone home and they receive bills in the mail, and how we react to that makes a big impact.
Well, that's interesting. To walk into a facility, both of you, different types of facilities, and know immediately, that's great. That's really great that could happen. Well, Dawn, tell me a little bit about the courses that you teach and what people with that credential do for their work.
Okay. So for medical office administration, we offer a lot of diverse classes for customer service, which is integral.
Yes.
And again, we can affect the practice for a physician. We can affect the patient's experience when they come in and ask questions. If we register someone incorrectly, the name is wrong or the date of birth is even wrong, it has an impact on the entire revenue cycle. And I think we all know how important the revenue cycle is as far as if we get it incorrect at the beginning. And so we are involved in customer service. We are involved in the information that goes into the medical record, which is critical for patient safety. And so we pride ourselves that we may not have a hands-on approach, but we definitely are critical and integral part of the healthcare process. We can affect patient lives if we input incorrect information. So not only are we looking at quality, we're looking at health information being correct. Billing can be very stressful for patients. No one wants to get a bill, and we want it to be right. We want to make that experience positive. So we offer medical terminology because, I tell my students that actually it's a different language, and you have to be able to communicate with the providers and the nurses in respiratory therapy, because if I don't understand what you're saying to me, I may make a mistake. And so we have medical terminology, medical legal, to make sure that we are confiding and making sure HIPAA violations are not, HIPAA is not violated so that confidentiality is maintained.
Well, yeah, in both your fields. I mean, because you're working with patients in every level, from their physical needs to what's in their back pocket.
That's right.
And so that confidentiality is a big thing.
And then, of course, we go into coding, which is a very challenging part of the program. And the coding affects the overall reimbursement for all physicians and hospitals. So a lot of people think, oh, that sounds fun, it sounds easy, but my students are very challenged when they come in to see how much we really have to know the clinical information of whether a patient is on certain medications, why are they on these medications, why are these tests affecting the diagnosis and the procedures. And so it's a great overall curriculum for healthcare that is hands-off but makes a huge impact.
Well, Vickie, tell me, what is the day of a respiratory therapist like? And I guess translate that into the courses you teach and what you're trying to prepare students to do.
Well, the day of the life of a respiratory therapist is an early day. I'm going to just put it in the day of clinical day of my students. Okay? My students go to clinical twice a week. They usually get up at 4:30 in the morning to be there by 6:30, and that's what time they check in to listen to report. So they get into the department at 6:30 in the morning, and they hear night shift report to day shift report. They could have anywhere from 40 to 60 patients that day that they take care of. We take care of patients with oxygen needs, breathing treatment needs. Depending on what hospital you go to is dependent upon what the respiratory therapist may do. We do a lot of critical care. We put people on ventilators. We put the people on ventilators that help them stay alive. We take people off those ventilators, and some days are very difficult. Actually, I had a student talk to me this morning and asked me how I deal with some things. And I said, you do what you have to do. You do your skills. You do your job. You go in the bathroom. You cry. You wash your face. And you go out and you save the next life. And you make a difference and you smile. Because it's really, really important to know that just a smile to a patient is going to make a difference in their lives. And I really, and with my students, I teach a lot of skills, skills that we do, tasks you may say, but you got to know why you're doing what you're doing. You got to make the right decision at the right time. But the one thing that I want my students to learn that I feel like is just as important as those skills is passion and empathy for those families, for those patients, and everyone else in your coworkers, those team workers. Everyone works together as a team, and that's the life I think a respiratory therapist is.
What are some of the core classes that students start with?
Some of the core classes that students start with is anatomy and physiology, chemistry. They have anatomy and physiology 1 and 2, and then they have chemistry. Then when they come into the respiratory program, we have cardiopulmonary anatomy and physiology, which we break it down even more. With respiratory therapy, we don't just concentrate on the respiratory system. It's called cardiopulmonary. Heart, lungs, kidneys. All three work together. We have anatomy and physiology, a lot of science, a lot of math. Ventilators, you can turn a button, but you better know why you're turning the button and what the button's going to do. So it's real important what we do. We are a lot of hands-on, but as Dawn said, we depend on, if those people don't turn the right buttons and make the right choices, it's going to affect what that coder puts in, and it's going to affect that families. You never see a family at their best in a hospital. A patient's never at their best, a family's never at their best. Everyone in that hospital, from a therapist to anyone else, to the medical records, anyone that engages in that with that patient needs to smile. They need to know they're making a difference in that person's life at that moment.
So bedside manner and deathside manner.
Absolutely.
Customer service is at the top, as well as the medical skills that they're learning and they need.
Yes, ma'am.
Wow. So this is my first in-depth to medical, other than being a patient myself. So I'm actually learning a lot, and it's very interesting. So Vickie, how would a person know that respiratory therapy is the field, career path they want to take? Because you said chemistry and anatomy?
Anatomy and physiology.
Oh, okay.
Lots of math.
Okay.
I think a lot of my students come into the program, and it's because they've had a family member that has experienced a respiratory issue, such as asthma, emphysema, things like that. And they come into the field. They know people. They've met people who have been in our program. They've talked to those people. They've actually been in a hospital, and a respiratory therapist has taken care of their family member. I've got a student right now who chose respiratory because of the way the therapist treated the family. So how are you going to know? I don't know that you're going to 100% know until you come talk to me, and I'm going to talk you into it. I'm going to talk you out of it because I'm really honest about what we do and what you have to deal with. And sometimes we deal with very difficult situations. You said earlier you don't like needles.
I do not like needles at all.
You may not like needles, but that you're being stuck with, but that doesn't mean you couldn't use a needle to stick someone else.
Right, that's true.
You know? So I could talk you right out of that, see?
Never thought about it that way. So let me ask you this. Now, the students who decide early on, they have registered for the class, they're in the program, but they decide this is not for them. Do you ever do like an exit interview to see why they decided this field was not for them?
Oh, yes, ma'am, most definitely. And what I like to do is, and you know, it's sad. I've had students that's determined the first semester this is not for them, and they haven't even went to clinical. They go to clinical in the second semester, and that's when they're going to do direct patient care. A lot of times that's when students decide this is not something I can do. So what we do, I do a lot of talking to them, and we try to guide them. If they want something in healthcare, but maybe not respiratory, I'm like, how about, do you want hands-on? We've got other programs that we can guide them toward. And if it's not hands-on, we've got coding, we've got medical coding. There's a lot of healthcare fields that you do not have to have hands-on. So we most definitely want to talk to those students, and we want to keep them here. We want to help them with their education.
And Dawn, my passion, or one of my passions, is customer service, and I know being that the coding person, and give me the title again. I do
Medical office
yeah,
administration.
medical office. I know one of your students, and she enjoyed that curriculum. How you said customer service is very important.
Absolutely.
Okay, so that's one of the skills. What else is very important? You were saying making sure they code correctly, so that billing will be correct, and because that's revenue. What else do your students expect? Is this hands-on? Is this like, is the classroom setting like an office setting? Or is it, how is your classroom set up?
Okay, so since I've been here as the instructor for medical office administration, I realized that I had students that really enjoyed the customer service experience and the coding experience. So in order for me to be able to focus on both, I now have 2 programs, customer service representative and then coding, both in medical office, so that we can cater to both of their needs without diluting either side. Because some of the coding can be very difficult, and I have some students that excel very well with that, and some that do not like the coding and they don't want to get as involved. So the customer service experience is going to help encompass everything from in the front office for a medical receptionist position, insurance company, they can work in that environment, in the hospital setting, in billing. And then the coding degree has both customer service and the coding, so that they can focus on that. But we have different settings for example, the coding class. We actually have to code from the book, and that is it's very important that they do that, because when they take their national exam, they have to take it with a book. But we also have an encoder here on campus, and that is state-of-the-art encoder that a lot of larger facilities, hospitals have. So they have to code by the book, and then we go into the encoder in the classroom setting, and they are able to go through that process as well, so that they're ready for their test, but then when they go to a hospital setting, they're ready to use an encoder.
Wow. I'm Kim. I've learned
It's a lot to take in.
a lot today.
It is a lot to take
about
in.
the medical field. And I can honestly say, being able to communicate and have a conversation with my colleagues, this is helping me a great deal. As Dawn is talking, I'm like, I need to get with her with some of this customer service.
Absolutely.
With Con Ed, some Con Ed courses as well.
Well, tell us, ladies, tell us about your students, about the teaching in the community college atmosphere. Either go first.
Well, I'll tell you, my students, I've been here almost 16 years, started out as a lab instructor and have gradually moved my way up. And so I've seen, throughout these years, I've seen different types of students. I've taught students from 18 years old to 60-year-olds. Right now I have, in my classroom, I have 2 18-year-olds and a 52-year-old. That's my range. So sometimes it's difficult to do that range, but our students are diverse. I have Latinos. I have 6 guys in my program, which is unusual.
That is
for
unusual.
Healthcare. We have, I have students, and this I think speaks volumes. I have students who have never set foot in a healthcare setting. I have students that's come out of textiles, out of manufacturing, where the plant, Miller, closed down. And they've come in, they're like, we don't know what to do. They come into respiratory. Never taken a blood pressure. We teach them to take blood pressure. We teach them to take temps. We teach them all the vitals. And then I'll have sitting right in the same class someone that's worked in a hospital as a CNA for 14 years. Well, this CNA individual is way above this person who's never stepped in the hospital. But when at some point, and usually it's the summer, that's when we start ventilators, they're all on the same field.
Okay.
It's like everybody is at the same playing. We're on the same football field then, on the same team, because their knowledge level is the same. And I just think our students here are so, my students, they want to learn. Sometimes they're just, they're my kids. I know that's, I kind of get a little possessive. They're mine. And they email me at 10 o'clock at night and I answer them. And I'm like, don't do that. But, we just really, you know, you want to see them be successful. You just go the extra mile for them. They're, you know, I feel like I struggle with their struggles. I fight their fights. I embrace their success. It is Respiratory Therapy Week, and I don't mean to steal the show, but a student sent me something on Facebook, a previous student, about me being the best program director, and that just absolutely made my day. Because, you know, you have those days where you feel sad and you're down and you see something and it just, you know, I'm doing the right thing.
Well, you're passionate about your students, and that's great. And I know you are, because we've had a conversation before. Tell me a little bit about what you see, particularly with women. Your program is predominantly female at this time. But
I have one gentleman this year, and he's doing fantastic, actually. And yeah, it's interesting because a lot of my students stumble into my program, and I, you know, asked them, how did you learn about medical office? And they said, well, you know, I heard a little bit about it. And our career has actually just been through a major transition from a coding classification of ICD-9 to ICD-10. And that's gotten a lot of recognition for us because it's a much more difficult classification, and it's affecting the physicians, it's affecting the hospitals, so they are seeing that they need to hire people with more experience and more education with the coding. And so, you know, some of the students come in, and once I evaluate, you know, what they are there for, I have a lot of students that come in that have a lot of self-doubt. And it is very important to me as a woman in the healthcare career field that they feel very confident when they leave this program in not only their skill, but who they are. And because I have a lot of single parents, I have a lot of people that have not had maybe a positive home environment and have not been told how fantastic they are. And I work really hard with students to let them know that this program is not for everyone, because some people have doubts about the coding, or and when they leave, they feel so confident and secure in what they've learned and what they've done and accomplished, and that's rewarding, very rewarding.
you ladies do good work.
Can I just say one thing that we picked up on with me and Dawn both? We say our students. They're ours. Don't my students. Don't say my students. I said my students. They become our you know, they're ours.
They become an extension of your family, because you all see them. These are intense programs, intense training. So you probably see them at least 3 to 4 times a week, and so they come used to that stability and that structure, which is really very helpful to, as you said, coming out of some come out of unstable environment. So to be able to come and know they can count on you all to be there, regardless what the assignments are, that probably says a lot.
And I was a single parent, and I tell my students that education empowers you, not just as a woman, but it empowers you as an individual, and that's something that no one can take away from you. And if it was easy, everyone would do it. And so, but college, it is an opportunity for everyone. Everybody has an opportunity now to get an education. And I talk to them, and I agree with Vickie saying that they may not work in medical office, but they may work in respiratory or nursing. I have some students that come into my program that really want to go to nursing, and it's a joy for me to get them on that career path, regardless if it's my program or any program that we offer, just to get them started.
Well, that's what we're about, is education.
Very much so.
That's right.
Helping them with their career path.
Well, Sally, wrap us up.
I will, Kim. So my last question to Vickie and Dawn is this. How can people who are interested in both of your fields, what do they do to get started in these career paths here at RCC? What's that first step, that first scary step that they have to take? And hopefully once you all tell us, it's not going to be scary anymore.
Okay.
Yeah, the scariest step is making that call. And when people are thinking about education, it is a very overwhelming thought for some. And that is really the initial step. Just make the call, make contact with the college, and tell them what it is that you're interested in. That's what we are here for, is to provide that skill and that leadership for a potential student, to let them know that we have so many opportunities here in healthcare and industry. I mean, it's really exciting to know how much we do offer here. But once you make that first call, then you'll see that you'll have the support here of getting all students into an advisor, and then that advisor, that's what they do. That's what they specialize in, is evaluating what are you interested in? What does your future look like to you?
Right, exactly.
And what can we do to help make that future brighter?
Yes.
And then if they know that they want to do something in the office, medical office, or a law office, or if they know they want hands-on, that's what the advisor will help them, guide them through the process. And we are always available as faculty to talk. I want to talk to any potential student and answer any questions that they may have about medical office administration, even if they're remotely interested and say, I don't really know a lot about this, what can you tell me about it? I've been doing this for 25 years, and medical office I'm definitely passionate about. So I love sharing this career with other ladies and gentlemen, and to help them get started.
And in respiratory, I agree with Dawn. Probably the scariest thing is sometimes clicking the website, or stepping on campus. But with respiratory, you can go onto our webpage and just type in respiratory therapy, and all the admission criteria comes up, contact information. We have informational sessions throughout the year that students can come to, and as a group, and we do it in the Owens building in the respiratory lab, so they can see the equipment, tour the hospital, and they can contact me. I will take them on tours. I'll sit down and talk to them. So all they got to do is make the call or come to campus. We're here.
We're here to greet them.
Yes, we are.
Absolutely. Well, Kim, the last thing I wanted to say, and then I'm going to hand it back over to you, the Con Ed Spring 2018 brochure will arrive in the Rockingham County, our residents. Our residents' mailbox early November. So that's the continuing education, the short-term training classes that we offer here at Rockingham Community College.
And students and prospective students should see their advisors, call the admissions office. For the first time, you'll be able to register for spring and summer session. We're eager to help you. Registration will open in November. And again, watch your mailboxes for the continuing education schedule. We're glad to help you. Thank you for joining us. Thank you, Sally, Dawn,
Thank you.
Vickie.
Thank you for having us.
Absolutely.
At RCC, you start local and go far.